All right, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to take a little time here tonight. We've got pretty interesting weather situation across the country, and particularly in the western United States. And I just wanted to take a little time to kind of share some things with a video that I can't really do as much just writing. So we're going to start off here by looking at a big picture, looking at the hemispheric weather pattern that's going on currently. And as I've talked about in some of my posts, I'm going to look here in the middle to upper levels of the atmosphere. So I'm looking at a 500 millibar forecast, which is about 18,000 feet above ground level. And what we see here, the contours are heights, which are equivalent to pressure on a surface weather map, and the wind basically moves with those heights. And the image, the background, is the anomaly. In other words, how much the heights are differing from normal. So reds are where we have the heights are above normal, where we have higher pressure essentially aloft in the atmosphere, and the blues are where we have below normal heights. And there's two features I really want to key on because from what I can see, they're really kind of controlling the jet stream and the flow pattern across the northern hemisphere currently. And there are these two. This map here is the initialization of the European AI model. So in other words, it's basically what's going on right now this evening. And you can see that there are two anomalously large areas of high pressure. The one is this one over the western United States that I've been talking about for the last few days in my posts. And then the other one is this even more unusual high pressure area near the Bering Sea and Kamchatka here west of Alaska. And as we go through time in the model, you will see that these two areas of high pressure and mid and upper levels of the atmosphere are very persistent. This one over the southwest, over the west, has been growing increasingly strong and persistent over the last several days. And while there is some evolution in it as we go through time, it's really a very persistent feature. We're out here now 6 days. We're out here to next Tuesday, and you can see a piece of it is kind of broken off and moved into the Midwest, but the high is basically reloading there over California and Nevada and Arizona. And this upper level, this insanely strong upper level area of high pressure over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians west of Alaska is just locked in up there. And as we go through time, go out to 8 days, 9 days, we're out here 10 days now, and this upper level high pressure area over the west has just basically expanded to encompass much of the United States. By this time, this would be a week from this coming Saturday, so the weekend of the 20th of December. And this high pressure area, it's a little weaker in the model world by day 10, but still very strong. And the reason why I want to show this is because these two features, the one off of Alaska and the one in the west, are very persistent. They've been, there's been some version of this for several days now. It looks like this is going to go on for a number of days. And so even though there will be some breaks in some of the precipitation in the west, in the northwest, this overall pattern uh, of atmospheric river type pattern where we have these systems moving into the Pacific Northwest with strong moisture transport into the region and heavy rainfall. Look like it's going to be going on for a number of days. So the next thing I want to talk about here is the fact that let me go back here a little bit. So the sorry, I wanted to try to go back in time here, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. So these upper level high pressure areas not only are kind of controlling the weather, they're also bringing very warm weather to the western United States, and that's pretty typical. Generally, upper level highs bring warmer than normal weather. Upper level troughs bring colder than normal weather, just at a very basic level. And you can see here on this map from the cool weather site that just currently right now, there are a number of locations in the Pacific Northwest that are exceeding their record high temperature for the day. And there were also a number of locations down here in California and Nevada that broke record highs today. And one of the reasons why we're seeing such an impactful flood event in the Northwest is because this system is not only very moist, it's also very warm. So the snow levels, typically at this time of year with a heavy precipitation event in the Pacific Northwest, we would be getting, snow at the higher elevations. But because this system is so warm with record warm temperatures, even at the higher elevations, much of this precipitation is falling as heavy rainfall, not snow. You got to go way up to get the snowfall. And because of that, instead of building a snowpack, this precipitation is just falling as heavy rain and running through the system, running into the rivers and streams. And so we're not building up a snowpack, and we're increasing the response in the rivers and the flooding. So I want to take a look here at this. This is a map of moisture, essentially, an animation of moisture over the last several days over the Eastern Pacific and the United States. And the product I'm looking at here is precipitable water, which basically is the amount of moisture that's in the atmosphere that can be condensed out to form rainfall. And you can see here, as we start this loop about 4 days ago, that there is this continuous stream of moisture up into the Pacific Northwest, and it's really being fed by anomalous moisture well back here to the southwest of Hawaii, and just this unusually strong flow of moisture has just been persistent into the Northwest, and particularly into Western Washington for the last number of days. So as these disturbances move through the jet stream, we get these waves of focused heavy precipitation. And one of those is going on today in the Pacific Northwest. And this is a loop of, hopefully it'll change here in a second. It's not changing. So I was going to show some radar images here, but essentially there's been a wave of heavy rainfall going on this afternoon and evening across basically the area of northwestern shoot, let me get the right map up here, of northwestern Washington. The heaviest rainfall has been occurring in the area basically from the Olympic range across into the area of the northern Cascades, basically from about the longitude of Seattle to the north. That's where the heaviest precipitation has been occurring today. And you can see here fairly widespread amounts in the mountains of 1 to 2 inches over the last 6 hours. And if we go to the 12-hour map, you can see that we have widespread rainfall amounts of 2.5 to 3 inches with some isolated heavier totals. And in fact, if you look down here in some of these highest elevations down here, like around Yakima, like 5.5 inches of rain. So some really hefty rainfall totals just today. And that's on top of periods of heavy rainfall that have been occurring over the last few days. And if we look at a map of 72-hour rainfall totals, you can see these mountainous areas to the east and northeast of Seattle have been running, 8 to 12 inches of rain in the last 3 days. Similar amounts up here on the Olympic Peninsula. And that rainfall is on top of rainfall over the last 2 weeks, which has totaled in the Olympic Peninsula like 9 to 15 inches, and even here along the Cascade Range, widespread amounts of 6 to 12 inches. So there's just been a tremendous amount of rainfall into this region over the last 3 days, and we're just kind of reaching this crescendo with these last couple of systems moving through this stream of atmospheric moisture that's been coming up out of the tropics and all the way up into the Pacific Northwest. And because the snow levels are so high, we're just seeing a tremendous volume of rainfall falling on the rivers, running into the main stem rivers and producing incredible rises on them. I want to take a look at some of these gauges here. I want to look first here. This is the Snoqualmie River at Snoqualmie Falls. And for whatever reason, they're not using a stage forecast here. They're using a flow forecast. So what we're looking at here is the amount of flow that's going through the river in thousands of cubic feet per second. And so you can see here, I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit on the fly here, that the river has been rising significantly in the last 12 to 18 hours from below action stage all the way up. Now here we had a peak a couple hours ago of 68,000 cubic feet per second. And the forecast has it falling a little bit this evening and into the early morning hours, but then a second peak coming in the flow tomorrow with a crest very close to the all-time record at Snoqualmie Falls. And the records on these rivers go back, decades. So the fact that we're approaching and in some cases exceeding records is pretty impressive. And some of these other gauges we're going to look at are even more impressive. But when we look at what the Weather Service has for impacts as the river gets above 70,000 CFS, you can see that they're talking about severe flooding from Snoqualmie down through Falls City. They're talking about residential areas, many roads being flooded, floodwaters deep and swift in some areas. So this is a really significant flood for this river, and this is just one of the rivers that's experiencing this kind of flooding. I talked in my post this morning about the Skagit River. This is the forecast for the gauge at Concrete, and you can see that when I posted this morning, the river was still down around in this action stage level, but it's been coming up rapidly this afternoon and evening. and is approaching major flood stage now. And the latest forecast, which was updated just a couple of hours ago, still actually has it just, if I'm not mistaken, slightly higher than when I posted about it this morning, approaching 48 feet. Tomorrow, you can see the record here is 42.2 feet. That record was set in, I'm not sure what the deal is with that 69 foot there on January of 1815, but as far as actual observed records, the record is 42.2 feet, and that was set in 2003. But the records on this river go all the way back into the early 1900s. If we look at some of these historic crests, you can see crests back here in 1933, 1926. So the fact that we're potentially, if the forecast pans out, going to break the record at this site by nearly 6 feet, when there are records going back 100 years or more, to me is just, I mean, it's almost insane to see those kind of levels. And if we look at the impacts that are being talked about, they're talking about levee damage, deep and swift floodwaters inundating residential areas all along the river. If we go to the downstream gauge on the Skagit, which is Mount Vernon, you can see here again, it's showing about a 5 foot above the record crest here. The record here was set in 1990, but again, records go back into the early 1900s at least. So this is really just an incredibly impressive, historic, dangerous flood on this river. And again, the Snoqualmie is seeing near record flooding. The Skagit potentially seeing well above record flooding. Another river that we're looking at here is let's get it down here. The Skykomish is another river that is forecast to see near record flooding. You can see it's actually very near the record right now. It got up to about 24 feet here at Gold Bar. If we look downstream near Monroe, it's forecast to crest very near record levels. So this is really just an incredibly impressive, dangerous, and in some cases, for some of these rivers, catastrophic type of flooding event for these rivers coming out of the Cascades in Western Washington. And although the river levels have not been quite as extreme on some of these rivers closer to the Olympic Peninsula, they've still been, quite, high, a lot of moderate to major flooding on a number of those sites. If we look at the Puyallup River, I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that right, you can see it crested very near a record earlier today. So we will obviously be continuing to monitor this event. It looks like, looking at radar, I was going to try to show radar, but for whatever reason, it's not popping up here. It does look like the rain is starting to gradually taper off, but obviously much of the damage has been done here with the tremendous rainfall that's already occurred. I do want to just quickly show here, and for those of you who are just joining one of these for me for the first time, I do try to call up maps on the fly here, and I do want to show the pattern and the rainfall for the Pacific Northwest for the next number of days. So while it does look like, let's go back all the way here. So here again, this is this evening. And as we go through time over the next couple of days, you can see, as we see in the image here, these really above normal height values of 250 meters above normal. That's really above normal. That this pattern is going to enable things to dry out a bit over the Pacific Northwest. There will still be some rain and showers, but not as much organized heavy rainfall as what we've seen of late. But as we go through Saturday and eventually into Sunday, you can see how the reds shift east, which will basically put the center of the high pressure area more to the southeast of Washington State and northwestern Oregon. And we'll start to get more of this onshore flow of moisture into the region again. And that pattern looks like it pretty much holds for at least the early part of next week. As we get out farther out in the model, this is the AI version of the European model, we start to get a little more into the model uncertainty, but certainly going into early next week, and if we look at like the anomaly of moisture here, we can see as we get past, this is Saturday evening and going into Sunday morning, and especially as we go into Sunday night and Monday, you can see very anomalously high levels of moisture again across the western United States, or excuse me, across the western Washington and Oregon. And if we look at the actual precipitation forecasts from the model out in this time period, this is the 48-hour forecast. You can see this heavy rain spreads back across the same region, the Olympic Peninsula and the Northern Cascades, for Monday into Tuesday, Wednesday, and really it is very persistent in the model world, at least through 10 days out. So even though we're going to get through this initial this last wave of heavy precip from this round, from this like atmospheric river event over the last several days, all signs seem to indicate that we're going to get back into this type of a heavy rainfall pattern. At least the early part of next week still looks abnormally warm, so we would expect snow levels are still going to be pretty high. Whether or not we might get to see them fall a little bit as we go through the week is something we'll have to, watch for. But as of right now, definitely there looks like there will be additional concerns for heavy rainfall and flooding in this same region as we go into next week. And then the other thing I just want to touch on briefly before wrapping this up is that we have this abnormal warmth. This is the 2 meter, the surface temperature anomaly, basically how much the forecast temperatures are above or below normal at the surface. And you can see here the abnormal warmth this afternoon and evening across the western United States. We can also see this building area of Arctic air with temperatures as much as 25 degrees Celsius below normal here over the Northwest Territories of Canada. And as we go through time, as this upper level high pressure area gradually builds over the continues to build over the western United States the next couple of days, it's going to allow this Arctic air over the Northwest Territories to start to spill down into the Midwest and eventually shift east through the Great Lakes and into the eastern United States. And we're looking here at Sunday evening, and you can see much below normal temperatures spreading over most of the eastern United States, east of the Rockies. But the core of the coldest air really looks like it's going to be centered over the lower Great Lakes and Ohio Valley region. And that's the area where, if we look at the forecast record temperatures, that this graphic that's produced by the National Weather Service Weather Prediction Center, you can see that by this weekend, this is the forecast for Sunday morning, that once again, as we saw about a week ago, we're looking at the potential for widespread record low temperatures across parts of the lower Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley region. So looks like another wave of particularly cold weather for the central and eastern United States this weekend. There are signs, as I was showing with the forecast weather map, going into the forecast mid and upper level weather pattern going into later next week, that upper level high pressure area over the western United States is going to tend to expand east and may at least bring a hiatus in this cold start that we've had to the winter over much of the Midwest and eastern United States. So we'll be watching as we get closer to Christmas to see if that warmer trend persists or whether we trend back toward a colder stretch of weather for the period around Christmas and New Year's. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions. Went right at a half hour. I appreciate folks that joined. We had a couple people, it looked like, and if nobody has any questions, I'm going to wrap the recording.